All right, bike fans, I have another crash for you. I was looking around the YouTubes for some Cat 5 crashes, which are it's tough to assess a lot of them because it's really just some crossed wheels and some pileups and some overreacting. But this one we can actually glean something from. We can learn how to be a better rider in a group or in a race from this crash. See, our guy here goes down, takes at least one guy with him. And there's some real lessons here. I'll have one in particular. So let's give it one more look here at full speed, coming through a left-hand sweeper, gives up his line and takes out a guy and maybe hits some wood poles over there. Not a good day. So let's break it down what we see happening here. As they roll into this sweeper, starting to coast, starting to slow down a little bit. Okay, the first thing we see is the surface. There's multiple surfaces here. They're on what appears to be asphalt, and this is probably concrete here. And sometimes there's a crack there. We do see that our main guy here rolls over that crack, no problem, as he goes through the turn. But then he panics here, gives up that line, and starts to come out into the group. And in fear of crossing up wheels on that guy, he just gives it up, puts a foot down, and we know the rest of the story. Now, a couple things here. One, giving up your line when you're the inside guy and you have a panic and you give up your line and you're deep into the group. Like here's our, what looks like maybe the lead guy. He's a dozen or more wheels back. It's a big sweeper, so the group can fit 3, 4, 5 guys wide because it's not a tight turn. What's happening is you go farther back in the group, this group has slowed down sooner coming into the turn, and that also means they are hitting an earlier apex in a big sweeper like this. So if you give up your line and go out, that's magnified because the people you're next to and behind you are coming in even more than when you were on the front, so that it magnifies this mistake. And so he rolls, you see him give it up and panics, puts a wheel down. And here's what he was trying to avoid. There's a leap up onto the asphalt here, which looks like it's been painted maybe by the race organizer to address it, but it looks rollable. It's maybe 2 inches ish high. You could roll over that and survive. You're probably risking a pinch flat. But here's the thing we can learn. When you're in a group, you have to approach obstacles and maneuver around or take into consideration hazards in the road a little differently than if you're by yourself. If he's by himself, yeah, he could totally give up his line. If he's got maybe one guy on his wheel, a smaller group, he can kind of give up that line. He has room to react. But in this group and in this context, he can't make this decision. Now, I get it. Sometimes there's crap in the road. We've seen in other anatomies of the bike crash, stuff that's going to take somebody out if they go over it. It looks like we've seen a guy on the front hit something in the road, put it in the air, and take somebody out. But you have to kind of make some calculated guesses here when you're riding. Is it better for me to roll over the thing, or is it better for me to react and get around it? In this case, I think he's better off rolling over it. Or there's option C here. The way this is cut out, he could have gone. You can move to the inside of a sweeper like this and not have a bad effect on the riders to your right, although people behind you are going to follow your line. He could even rolled across this grass, depending on this lip. It's a little blurry, can't really see. But that thing was rollable. And again, it's not always the case, but I think he would have been better off just rolling that. When I look at this turn, he'd have been better off staying that line and just rolling over that crack. And what really contributes to this is the mentality that happens on group rides, and especially in races, is I don't want to get dropped. Hitting the brakes, slowing down, being cautious is not an option for this guy in his mind. I have to hold on to the wheel. I can't give up my place. I'm racing. Maybe it's the last lap or near the last lap. It's just not worth it. And I think that's probably the cause of so many crashes. People are not the best versions of themselves making decisions when they're going all out and they're afraid of losing the wheel. just a little, even if he wanted to roll that thing, just touch the brakes a little bit, bunny hop it, unweight a little bit. There's so many better things you can do, but he doesn't want to slow down. And that costs him that. And I don't know his brain. I don't know exactly what's happening. I'm just making some guesses here. But you have to, and this could have played out a couple different ways, but you have to take into consideration what the obstacles are. And sometimes it's better just to roll the thing and roll over. And I think this guy should have rolled over that crack. And he probably should have just eased up for a little bit and then worked for position. Now his day's definitely over. Because if you crash, you're never finishing.